Well, welcome back. It's good to be on again. And today's topic is on the deceitfulness of what we call our minds. Where to begin? The mind is a tool that we have at our disposal, but a lot of problems come up for humans because we over-identify with that tool. Hi, Sunfire. That's a lovely name. And the sun is quite bright in the sky today, I have to say. I went out and got a little bit of it earlier today before coming back home. It was nice, but I am a little bit weary of summertime now. But anywho, a lot of the problems that humans have with the mind is that we are over-identified with our thoughts. And so many people believe that the internal monologue that they have going at all times is actually them. That's a problem. They over-identify with their thoughts, and they do not know who they would be if they let go of the thinking, let go of the thoughts. But when you start to put this into practice and you actually start to slow down and let thoughts pass like the clouds they are, you come to a sense of awakening and you begin to realize that this chatter that you had in the mind was never you. It was never you utilizing the system. It was the system just running you. The mind is, again, a tool that we are to use for practical purposes. When people are told to let go of thinking and thoughts, they often don't know what to make of that. And it's often the best thing that we can do for ourselves, which is to just stop letting the thoughts in. You will have so many thoughts come to you in your life that really don't need to be entertained. They don't need to be accepted or integrated. They really are just passing by like clouds. But again, many people identify with their internal monologue and they end up suffering because of it. So they get themselves into so much trouble because they're always thinking, and then they have these thoughts, and their thoughts become worries, and the worries become anxieties, and they're just stricken with so much pain that was totally avoidable. Pain that was not even based in anything real. It's kind of amazing to me. So many people suffer in their minds. They suffer in their minds, and the mind, again, is a tool. It's hard to really tell people how to let go of thoughts, though, because the only way to do it is to do it. The only way to let go of thoughts is to begin the practice of letting go of thoughts. Now, this can be called meditation. That is a way that people learn to start to separate themselves from their thoughts. It can be done through a prayer where you are in silence. In fact, I think in the Bible, when Jesus talked about praying, he doesn't suggest that we go and, repeat things, mantras like the pagans do, I think he said. And we're not suggested to even ask for specific things. It's best to just show up in silence because God already knows what we need and what's on our hearts. And it's about going into that presence and being with it and letting all of that anxiety, all that doubt, worry that creeps in from the thoughts go, because you begin to recognize that it isn't real. I was talking with a friend earlier today who was, her mind was in overdrive. I'll just say that, like overdrive, worry, making up all of these fake scenarios to worry about that had nothing to do with anything real, nothing to do with anything she would actually even experience, but she had caused herself distress by it. She had caused herself discomfort by it, by letting these thoughts about something that isn't even going to happen and has nothing to do with her real life anyway. Take over and lead her into darkness. There was a dark time in my life when I felt very mentally tortured. It didn't matter what I would do. My thoughts were just at me constantly. They were nipping at me. They were, well, I call them my thoughts. That's incorrect. But I was having thoughts. And my mind would just spiral and go into all of these different scenarios and fantasies, worrying about potential outcomes that actually would never have really manifested. And I would find myself emotionally distressed by this. So I would imagine scenarios in my mind. The thought would come to me. I would entertain it. I would let it dwell within me. And then it would take on a life of its own, and it would play out a scenario for me. And there were times when it got so bad that I caused myself to cry from this because I was so upset about what had taken place in my mind. But the reality in front of me was no different. Nothing in front of me that I actually practical that I had to deal with had changed. But I did find that my energy was so drained by this process because obviously, I had emotional reactions to the thought patterns I was having. They were impacting my emotional self. They were causing me to weep. When I look back now, in terms of like the growth that's happened since that time, I'm kind of stunned. And even at that time, like I did have the tools, like I knew in many ways how to meditate, how to watch my thoughts, but I had just allowed myself to get kind of sucked down into hell. Now, I talked in a previous video about heaven and hell and how these are actually states of mind. And I think this, we'll come into that with this video as well, because they so are. You mentally and physically in your life can be drugged into hell just by the thoughts you have. So again, I was being routinely tortured by these thought patterns that were enacting all kinds of torturous scenarios for me to be emotionally disrupted by. That had no place that had nothing to do with what was in front of me. And yes, what was in front of me wasn't great. I wasn't content with that. Obviously, I don't think my mind could have, if I had been content, would this have happened? Maybe not. Maybe I would have been less inclined to follow my thoughts. But obviously, the inner world and the outer world were reflecting each other in some ways. But that being said, what was going on in my mind was so much worse and so much darker than the day-to-day practical things I was facing and dealing with. While maybe I wasn't happy with them, were not at that level. It took quite a few years to kind of pull myself back out of that and like recover. It was really amazing how I let myself get sucked into that, mainly from listening again to the thoughts, following the thoughts, letting the thoughts dwell instead of letting them pass by like they're supposed to. We can't do this to ourselves. We really can't. We have to let these things go. We have to let, when the thoughts come up that tear at us, that torture us, that frighten us, we have to remember that it is not being produced by us. It is being produced in the mind, which is a separate part of us. And we are to use it for practical purposes, not for the purpose of torturing ourselves. And so now, I have these lovely periods of time where I don't really have any thoughts. And what I mean by that is I will be thinking about what's in front of me to do, what is practical, but my mind is not off some other place. It is with me, and it isn't leading me into deception or leading me into hell, leading me into a place of torture. But I see so many people that I know just stuck in that never-ending loop of thoughts controlling them, thoughts taking over them, dwelling in them, and not leaving. And this is, again, a choice. I mean, we are the ones who invite these things in. But again, it's so easy to do this because we have been trained to identify with the mind and to think that the internal monologue we hear and have is us. It could be not you. You could be responding to something that is, manipulated by other forces as well. Getting into the spiritual aspect of this, one of the number one ways that spirits work on us is in our mind. They will give us images, give us thoughts. They will place things in there because they have the ability to manipulate that. And obviously, most of the time, these manipulations that are coming, these thoughts that are coming, especially when they're really torturous, really vile, really disturbing, that's not coming from something good, okay? I will warn you about that. So you also have to keep your mind sharpened, or you have to keep yourself sharpened against that as well, and recognize that sometimes what you're experiencing in your mind is, again, it's not being produced by you. Depending on what you've been exposed to in the day, there is a lot of, obviously, programming in the programming we view. You may have been exposed to certain symbols or sigils that maybe you didn't recognize at the time that were meant to implant something in you to get you to respond in a slave-like fashion. I mean, a lot of this media that we are consuming even songs, movies, TV shows are full of things that can manipulate the mind and take it over. I mean, this happens a lot of times with songs. I mean, how many people become emotionally impacted by songs, and songs bring out memories, again, the past, which is not real, which exists in the mind. They bring it forward and bring those emotions to the surface to torture you. It goes deep. I'm not saying this to be like wary, like, oh, you can't listen to a sad song or you can't listen to something dark. Obviously, like, some of that is, it's not good or bad, it's neutral, really. But, well, not always. I mean, be aware of who you're listening to as well. Some of these people who are put forward as singers, or artists, quote unquote, some of them are very demonic, and it's very obvious from the way they act, the way they, you can see it right away with some of them if you're attuned to looking for the signs. And it isn't always surface, because they may look very, wholesome, but what are the things they're bringing up in your mind? What are they making you feel? What are the messages? And like, what agenda do they really serve? I think that's important to look at too with what we're consuming. Is what they're doing in the world ultimately uplifting humanity, or is it enslaving us, keeping us stuck? That is something to keep in mind when discerning, using that discernment to read the spirit of what their creation is and what its purpose is. I don't want to call any names here, but there are some pop stars really that you don't want to listen to, or you want to be very wary about listening to, because they're very catchy, they're very gimmicky, but they will cause your mind to go into these loops, and they will expose you and bring up those kind of very triggering feelings, which are also deceitful. The mind is deceitful, and so are our emotions. Sometimes we'll feel bad. We'll have a situation where we'll feel bad about something, but it isn't for the right reason. And then we'll make a decision based off of the way we're emotionally responding in the moment. But then later on, it turns out that was deception. This is why we have to recognize so much and so strongly that our mind, what happens in it, isn't always us. Actually, most of the time it isn't us, and it isn't even us. We are not our thoughts. The thoughts that come up in the mind are not ours. They don't really belong to us unless it is practical about what is in front of you, the work that you have to do with your hands, the plans you are making, the steps you are taking. Those thoughts that pop up, they really aren't you. But because we use our mind practically as this tool to survive, because we do that, we think that every thought that comes into us is from us, and it isn't. Have you ever had an intrusive thought come in? A worry that makes no sense? Maybe Maybe it's regarding something like tragic way of dying. Is that being produced by you? Is that your mind? Is that you? Or is your mind producing something that is terrifying, and because it's in you happening, that you're observing it, you think it's you? I used to have that happen sometimes too. I used to have like scary things come up like that, scary thoughts that were just disturbing. I don't know, like, yeah, often be like on ways of dying, things like that. Suicidal thoughts. Obviously, like, I'm not suicidal, but I would have like thoughts about what it would look like. Um, or ways it could be done. And it was disturbing. And these things would just crop up in me. And I'd be so like, oh, like, why is that coming to me? Like, is this what it's like for, and I don't really know, because I've never had that desire to consciously end my life that people talk about having. But when I was having those kind of like intrusive thoughts come up, it made me wonder about what other people were going through that do claim that. I'm like, do they go through this? Is this what's happening to them? And this gets into so much in our culture as well, because people are so over identified with the mind, and they think that every intrusive thought they have, that they entertain, is real and belongs to them, and it actually not doesn't only belongs to them but is them. We have a lot of people who are very not only easily manipulated, but who are really possessed by the demons that have found a home in their mind. And I want you to think about this with certain things we are facing in this culture, real disturbing issues. And you know, sometimes with these people, when you speak to them, that they're not really home. The thoughts have become so, the thoughts that they have allowed to come dwell in them really have taken over, and the person that was there before is lost. It's a total possession. And when it is confronted, then you see the intense reaction that is so like egoic. It is based in survival. Yeah, it's like a survival reaction that they have, because again, it's that thought demon wants to dwell in this body that it has possessed. And when it is confronted with the truth, the spirit of truth, then what happens is there is a real shakeup, because the lie that has come to possess a person is being triggered into knowing that it's recognized. Many people are happy to go along though, but when the truth is present, when it is revealed, when a lie is presented and then the truth is it is confronted with the truth, we see this interaction. There is an explosion, and the explosion is egoic and survival based. So it goes straight to the heart. It goes straight for the jugular. It is vicious. It is monstrous. It is disturbing, because it is trying to survive. Because if the truth keeps coming and hitting knocking on the door there, the demon has to flee. But it will kick up a storm and tempest before it does so. And this isn't, I mean, we're talking about like culture. Obviously, this pertains specifically to the growth of the trans identity cult that has possessed so many people's minds. Again, getting the individual to over identify with their thoughts, that the thoughts actually then take over the vessel. And this is why it is so dangerous to encourage people to actually begin to question things like their gender. Before this was a practice in the culture, before this was commonplace that people were asked to actually think about this was a far smaller phenomena. But the growth of it is in many ways being, what's the word I'm looking for? Propagated. It is being the growth of this is being propagated by people being asked to invite these kind of demonic thoughts in. Obviously, we know the truth that there are men and there are women, and we were made one or the other. Even if you have an intersex condition, you are one or the other. So with that being said, then, people are being asked to interrogate themselves. They go into their minds and they begin to really get confused about what it means to be a man or be a woman. And they're looking at it from these various points. And most people are not grounded and rooted in material reality. They're not grounded in the spirit of truth, and they're not grounded in the spirit of reality. And so what happens when you are in that position is that your thoughts are blown all over the place. It's like a windstorm inside of you. Now, obviously, not every person who interrogates this within themselves to come to some sort of answer about their belief, their gender belief, about themselves, will take on a trans identity. But I think it is very interesting that so many people are doing that now. And it is in so many ways propagated by the fact that they are being asked to interrogate this about themselves. And we are being asked to discuss this thing that is, again, exists in the mind of the individual. Because that's what it is. It isn't a material reality. It is a phenomena which is existing in the minds of individuals. Man, are we screwed or what? And as I said, the mind is deceitful. The mind is not immune to propaganda. The mind is not immune to the forces of good and evil working on it. And let me tell you, the forces of evil work day and night to enslave you. They work day and night to corrupt your thinking. They work on your mind. They work on your heart to erode the spirit of truth within you. And since that has happened so much in the culture, the pendulum has swung in the opposite direction, away from truth and reality into the theater of the absurd. And obviously it will swing back in time, but we also have to be a part of that. We have to take our place in that battle and position it to move forward. And part of that is becoming people who are not controlled by our thoughts and emotions, because we understand that these things are deceitful and that these things are easily manipulated by the culture around us. I mean, the culture around us that we are exposed to, that we're all consuming, again, we are taking it in, consuming it, really does have an impact on who we become and how we think. How we think changes how we act. How the mind works changes how we act. So if we have a mind that is out of control, or I don't want to say that out of control, if we are out of control, or if we have let our mind run amok and take over the running of our system, then we're in trouble. We're in a position of captivity. Now, I've been going on for half an hour and had various viewers. I don't see anyone commenting about what I am saying, so I don't know if it's resonating for anyone here, but I do think that what I have observed and kind of come to awareness about myself here is very striking. Now, I use the trans example, but this isn't the only example of how the mind is being corrupted and how people are beginning to lose control of their vessels, because that's just one example. But there are so many I don't know, like ways of thinking that are being pushed, belief systems that are being pushed, which are contrary to truth, contrary to reality. And because of that, they take over and possess the people who begin to adopt them and identify with them. And often this is done through fear. You know, fear is a number one way of controlling people. Fear will make people do and behave in the most ridiculous ways. It will make them give up everything, all their freedom, all for the false promise of safety. Now, we've seen this with the pandemic that we've been through, and apparently is kicking up again. They're trying to make us afraid of this virus again. And for what purpose? I mean, the fear that was propagated in 2020 led to near economic collapse. All of the economic consequences we are facing now in so many nations are a direct result of this pandemic. The economies, the states of our cities, the political situations are all in direct result of that. And this was something that was fear mongered into the minds of people. And it was done through deceit. And because people allowed the spirit of fear to take over, they gave up their community, their workplaces, our culture. They were taught to fear their neighbors. People gave up so much. And it's being pushed again. And what will they try to take from us again? You know, and I swear, like, so many people lost their lives from this, and it wasn't due to the damn virus either. You know, I know a young woman who took her life during the pandemic, and haven't talked about her on this channel before. I knew her from the internet. She was an internet friend for many years. I met her, in the radical feminist milieu. She was a funny person. She was very kind and sweet. She was very troubled, and she had issues, of course, like we all do. But the conditions that were brought about in her country, she was Australian, the intense lockdowns that she experienced, and the fact that she had to go live with family that she did not get along with, really, it really did bring her to a very dark place. Okay, like, it was obviously, I mean, she was the one who took her life. So at the end of the day, that is what happened. But I also have to think, like, what sort of thoughts was she having that led to that point? And what did the, external world around her and the lack of freedom she had? I mean, she had talked about during the lockdowns, she had just like, she had to get out of her home at one point because, she was having issues with her family members, and she just went for a drive, and she was actually, she had parked somewhere just to think, just to kind of have a breather space and kind of think. And she was, a police officer actually had come up to her and was harassing her, basically asking her why she was out, this, that, and the other. And I know other people who had very, if it wasn't the actual police, they were being policed by other citizens, other civilians. But regardless, I don't want to go too deep into that subject. But again, fear takes control of the mind and takes you out of the driver's seat. When the fear is allowed to dwell in you, when it's allowed to work on your heart and mind, then you will be enslaved. You will lose control of your vessel. And that's something that we cannot let happen. We have to not allow fear to dwell within us. Sunfire says, I'm learning to be positive. Sometimes I need it. So for you, what would being positive mean and what would being negative mean? I'm curious about that because, I mean, but I'm a very I'm a very optimistic person by nature. Like, I'm very just have a cheerful disposition, by nature. I tend to see things that way. But I am curious what you mean by positive and negative. And you know what? I'm going to, while you answer that, I'm going to just take a quick break. I'm going to grab a Pellegrino. So I'll be right back. For those watching, I'll see you in a moment. All right, I got my little can of San Pellegrino. I was thinking before I went live, like, oh, go grab one. And then I was like, oh, I probably won't be on that long. But of course, it's been 40 minutes of me talking about this matter. Like I do. I like to, when I talk about something, kind of try to paint picture and give an example or give examples of what I'm talking about, because I know a lot of the times the concepts that I'm talking about aren't, they're meaty, they're not, this isn't a fluffy channel, it never has been. Even though I may be a little fluffy, the content is not. So anyway, yes, I have my San Pellegrino. It is tangerine and wild strawberry. It tastes like neither. But it has that nice carbonation that I love. Okay, so let's get into the positivity and negativity talk. Ugh. Positivity and negativity. Negativity talk. Excuse me. All right, Sunfire. So to me, positivity means to have hope, think bright, and be disciplined. Yes, so those are good things, obviously. Negativity, there I go again, to me is self-sabotage, insecurities. As of now, that's what I'm suffering. Okay. All right. I understand what you mean. Yeah, I think it's important again to remember that the mind is a tool, and we can use it in ways that serve us or in ways that destroy us ultimately. So, whenever you have a thought come into you, really step apart from it and ask yourself, is this thought going to be of service to me, to my highest good, and to the good of my fellow humans, or is it destructive and going to destroy me and others? I mean, that's all you have to do with a thought that comes to you. Is this a thought that builds, or is this a thought that destroys? Be simplistic about it. You have the ability, when your thoughts come to you, to question them and to let them go. If they're not for you, then you don't need them. I feel like being positive is so hard when I hate what I see in the mirror. Well, I'm glad you found this video today. It's in no way is it productive to hate yourself. It's never productive. But you know what? This is the thing, and that is the devil in you. Let me just pull this up again. That is the devil in you. Because this is what happens when you are led into that darkness, when you dwell there, when you make a home in it, or when you let it make a home in you. There's no deliverance. You're never accepted there, are you? You're never, even though you've been led there, you never have a real home there, because no matter what, you'll always be condemned. Your thoughts will always condemn you. They'll always come for you. It's that's the thing, about how when we get led into the darkness, there is no deliverance. There is only condemnation. And we think it's us. You think that those thoughts are you. You think that hate is you. But it isn't. That hate is not you. That is a condemnation that has come to dwell in you. But you can reject it. You know, you really can. Well, welcome to the channel. It's all over the place right now. I have lived quite a life. So my channel is a reflection of that. But definitely there is food for thought here and things to help, hopefully, even if it's just a few people. And I'm so happy when we do have these like live chats where it's only like a small group of people, under 10 people, because the kind of, it's just, I know at that point that the people who need to be heard are being heard. When the chat gets kind of unruly, there, you don't get the time to spend with each person. But I appreciate this right now, that we have this kind of intimate little gathering and we can kind of explore this deeper. Okay. See, so what I would say, understand that these are not your thoughts. Just because it's happening in your mind doesn't mean it's you. You have to learn how to separate your identity from your thoughts. Because just because it's happening in your mind does not mean it is of you. Thoughts come in all kinds of ways. They could be programmed into you. There can be, disturbance from outside of you. But regardless, that is not the spirit of truth that is dwelling within you. If your thoughts are trying to destroy you, or if the thoughts that are in you are trying to destroy you, that is not practical and it is not of you. So you have to reject it. You have to, when it comes, reject. That is not of me. That is not, you would never, ever consciously, destroy yourself. But when we allow the thoughts that we have to make a home in us, when we identify with them instead of witness them, then that's when we become possessed again by those, the way they manipulate us. They manipulate our character and our feelings. Again, it is a demonic presence. If your thoughts are trying to destroy you, that is not of God, okay? Because that is not. You really have to, you have to get simple with this. And I think this is, again, part of the reason why I've been brought back to kind of like my Christian roots in the past couple of years very strongly, because it's like we're having a spiritual battle in this world, and so much of what's happening outside of us that we think, the world is crazy. This is the forces of good and evil in the world battling to control our minds and our hearts. And we have to understand that these things are deceitful because they are manipulated. And so we do have to look to what's higher, and we have to understand that there is a higher purpose, and there is, a divine morality we can look to and think, is this building? Is this bringing me closer to the kingdom of heaven, or is it bringing me into the kingdom of hell? Is this building my spirit, or is it destroying my spirit? Right. That's what it's there for. That is what it's there for. It is simple. If the simpler you are, the freer you are. Let me repeat that. The smartest people are the most miserable, but the people who use their minds simply are free. You know, be humble in your mind. Don't let the thoughts come into you and possess you. I mean, that happened to me for many years. I thought because I was, able to think in all these certain ways, and I was able to like communicate these kind of abstract thoughts to people that, oh, I'm so smart, that's all ego. It's not real. The truly like smart people are the ones that are humble and practical and do what needs to be done every day. That's smart. But we again, in this culture, like, things are inverted. This reality is inverted. You kind of have to see that about it. And when you start to see that, the lowest amongst us are elevated, The things that people value really have nothing to do with what is practical or good. Once you start to make those recognitions, it's like you start to unravel the lie, and you start to recognize like the way that the world and all the worldly things around you are trying to vie for your very soul. They want to enslave you and keep you down. But you can be liberated and you can experience that. But it comes down to like really, again, recognizing this is not me. This is not who I am. Okay. Yep. I mean, that's the voice of the devil, the condemnation. But you are enough and you are accepted. You're here. You were created for a purpose. And, we aren't perfect. Humans are not perfect. There's there's one individual in the whole Bible that's perfect, right? Every other human that God uses to advance his kingdom is flawed. I was having a recent place of judgment for someone I know who is also a person of faith. I will admit this. I was having some judgment about him because of things that the demons he struggled with, or that he still struggles with. That he reached out to me a few weeks ago, and I'd been having, I'd had a nightmare. And in this night, it was more than a nightmare. To me, it was a showing of the spiritual warfare that's been going on in my life and the things I need to do to overcome it. Because it's been going on for a long time, okay? A long time. And I'm not out of that, I still have work to do. But like the next day, he just randomly sent me a message with a Bible verse. And it was Matthew 6:33. Like, this was unprompted. We hadn't been talking, but I'll read it to you all. It's a very famous passage. Because it's very simple. Where is that? 6. All right, 6:33. This is, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. So what does that mean? I mean, in the nightmare I'd had, or the dream, the revelation, I would put it, this dream that I'd had, I was doing spiritual battle with these demons, and I kept having to proclaim, that Jesus is Lord to them to get them to flee, but then they'd come back. And it was because I wasn't letting go of certain things. They would twist their face and they would run. And there was one point in this dream where I sang another Bible verse to get them to flee. It was quite an experience. So to then the next day have this individual reach out to me. And like I said, this individual that I had judged, and not, I have my own stuff too, and I can be very easily judged. So, it is what it is. Humans are flawed. I am flawed. He is flawed. But I really I felt like here is a perfect example of God using an imperfect human being to send me a message. Just keep seeking the kingdom of God. Keep on it. Seek that first before anything else. Okay, moving on. I'm having trouble following this. I hear you. It's not of God. I'm actually more empowered by the thought of having a strong body than I'm disgusting and unworthy of love. Is that the difference? I mean, take good care of your vessel, okay? As somebody who is sick, disabled, struggling with many health issues, health is not guaranteed. So, and there may come a day where you may not be able to exercise or improve your vessel. So while you can, take care of it, do what you can for it, love it, nurture it. It is a gift, and health is a gift, and it can be taken away just like that. Yes, build your spirit, honey. It's 2:38 a.m. Dang. Right. Just because it's happening in you does not mean it is you. Okay? Your mind is not you. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are the being that is observing it. All right? And you have the power at any point to say no to a thought or feeling that does not build you or serve you. Take back your power. What are my thoughts on the devil and demonic possessed people? I mean, I did speak about demonic possession a little bit earlier. There are many people in this culture that are demonically possessed. You see them every day. Now, there are more extreme cases of this, like you see in the movies. But how it happens is, again, people let the demonic energies into their vessels. And there are ways that they do this. And this can be through what they take into their body. It can be through their sinful nature. If you, let's take an example, fornication, which is what? Sex outside of marriage. But let's just talk about this. Just because you fornicate does not mean you will become demonically possessed. Okay? But every time you have sex with someone, you are exchanging energy with that person. You are getting emotionally tied to them, spiritually tied to them. Okay? So we have a lot of people in this culture who carry a lot of demonic energy because of the sexual encounters they have had. And they don't recognize it. Like they're tortured, they're very distraught, their thoughts run away from them, they're emotionally disturbed, and they haven't connected it to the fact of them, maybe sleeping with too many people or sleeping with the wrong people. Because you sleep with the wrong person, it will ruin your life. It'll take you into hell. You get in the wrong relationship, and you sleep with that person, you can be bound to that person for life. And it may not just be, like the extreme example of that is having a child with the wrong person, but it can be other things too. Like you could get sucked into a very toxic relationship that you don't want with a very disturbed person, and that will suck and drain your energy. That's a lot of it too. Like a lot of times people, they get into relationships with people who supposedly have like this personality disorder or like any other number of like issues. And really what's at the heart of it is this person is demonically possessed. And you'll see it. You'll fight with them. Their eyes will change. They'll get a smirk on their face. The narcissists, the borderlines, the sociopaths. That's not them. But this culture tells them that it is them because, it's easier to and more profitable and more in alignment with the, religion of the culture, which is secular humanism, than to acknowledge the existence of good and evil and the existence of the demonic realm. But these people are demonically possessed. Because what is their purpose? It is to destroy. It is to finish you off. Anytime a person is like possessed, by any spirit, I mean, these are spirits that are living in these people, a spirit that has taken up residency. But okay, so we talked about fornication, right? So that can, again, lead you into hell. Drugs, drug use can lead you into hell. Not keeping a sober mind and body will lead you into hell. Literally, I mean, there's so much, and then of course, when you do something wrong, let's say, you hurt another person, you can't hurt another person without hurting yourself. So what happens in that circumstance is then you are then led into the spirit of self-condemnation and that beating yourself up. I dealt with that for a very long time where I just beat myself up. I was so hard on myself, just so self-abusive. And then I had to come to realize, like, that's not me doing that. That's not of God. That is me, like, being condemned for mistakes. But God does not condemn you for your mistakes. Okay? That's what the devil does. God shows mercy. God gives you new chances. Every day that you wake up and you have new breath in your lungs is another chance. But yeah, the devil, and that's the other thing too, the devil masquerades as a being of light. The devil plays on your heart, your emotions, wants to make you feel good. Like you're doing the right thing because it feels right. It feels good. Tell that lie because it'll make everything feel better. It'll make that person happy. Do this thing you're not supposed to do because it will make somebody else happy. I was stuck in that as well. Like so many years of like justifying my own wickedness because look at all the people I'm serving. Look at how happy they are. Look how satisfied they are. It couldn't be wrong, but it is. This is again where the heart and mind are deceitful. Just because you can rationalize it doesn't mean, just because it feels good in your heart doesn't mean it is good. Ultimately, what is the path of life? That's another passage. I can't remember. It's in Deuteronomy, but it's like, I have God says that he's given us choices between life and death, and that we need to choose the path of life so that, we and our descendants may live. I can't remember. I'm misquoting it, but behold, I have set before you blessings and curses, life and death. What are we choosing? It's real out here. I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to think about the devil because, for so many years, it was easy for me to believe in God. It's easy for me to believe in a creator. But to believe in the devil seemed silly. It seemed like, okay, that's a bit hokey, the devil. But the devil is real. When you see how people are deceived, that's the thing about the devil. It's a spirit of deceit. He doesn't he's very crafty. It's a crafty thing as well. It works. That spirit works in ways that are deceptive because he's not going to come right out and reveal himself right away. It's done through cunning craft. And how it works is, we have little pockets of doubt planted within us about, what is good and what isn't. We start to think that we can, for ourselves, determine what is good. Like, we are the moral arbiters, And the other thing too about the devil, and this is the thing about, we'll talk about Satanists for a moment. Because there was a time when I identified with that, I thought that was it. It was so cool. And I did learn things from, studying that. Oh, did I learn things? But, the Satanists, most of them, some of them do believe in the devil, but most of them would say that they're atheists and that they worship the self. Worship of the self, is Satanism. There's no difference. When you put yourself as God, when you put yourself as the ultimate arbiter of good versus evil, like, that in and of itself is the spirit of the devil. Again, you don't have to worship him outright. All you have to do is worship yourself, to see yourself as above everything, to see yourself as the ultimate creator. That in and of itself is enough. And that in and of itself is the path of destruction. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to continue talking about that specifically. It might be a topic for a video in and of itself. Like, who is the devil? It's it's not this. It is the spirit that enslaves you. It is the spirit that puts you into bondage. This is the thing about God. Is a liberatory spirit. He leads his people out of slavery. He does not let them remain in bondage forever. He delivers them. But the devil is the one who will ensnare you, who will tie you up, who will put you into bondage and make you feel like you can't get out, even though you do have the power to get out. That's the thing about it. You do have the power. but he will make you feel like you can't. And he does that through working on your mind, planting deceit into your mind, planting doubt, planting fear. Fear. Again, fear is a very, very wicked thing. And it is the ultimate enslaver of humanity. More than anything else, people will put themselves into bondage just because they are afraid. People will give up all their liberty just because they're afraid. People will sacrifice their neighbors and hate them just because they are afraid. It ain't right. It ain't good. It's not good for you. You will be promised everything and given nothing. That's the other thing of it too. Like, so many people find themselves in bondage, like in relationships. They get with again, the fornication piece. We'll go back to that. You get into you're tempted into a relationship, and what is, what you're being promised at the beginning is so wonderful. It appears so lovely, it appears so exciting, so miraculous, like it's going to deliver you, like it's going to save you, like it's going to give you everything you ever wanted, like it's going to complete you. And then when it's, in front of you and you're dealing with it, it's not anything that was promised. It is the opposite. You're in bondage, you're unhappy, the love isn't there, the kindness isn't there, the care. You have not been saved, you have been enslaved. I did in a recent live stream, I did do a juxtaposition of the two tarot cards, the Lovers and the Devil. So, if you ever want to look at a good depiction of these specific concepts, what is the spirit of truth? What is the spirit of love? What does it look like? And what is the opposite? What is the spirit of deceit? What does it look like? And what are the people who are in these spirits? What are they experiencing? It's just, just saying. Well, I have been on for over an hour. I am feeling like I've spoken a good deal about this matter. Does anyone have any other questions? I will stay on for a few more minutes. If anyone has any other questions or comments. Well, I'm glad that it helps you spiritually. West. Yeah, I understand. It's hard out here, isn't it? And oftentimes we are. If the person in front of you is not living righteously, you are better off. You are better off. A worldly lover is not going to give you anything except problems. Yeah, I removed that video, and I am actually thinking about doing. I have been very, very, very upset about her death. I'll just say that. The week of it that it happened was the worst, obviously, because she was so influential and important to me as a young woman. So I've been wanting to do something in honor of her. I am intending to. I don't know if that's going to be like a live stream or a video or something, but um, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, I did do a video, I don't know, probably 9 years ago, 10 years ago about her. No, it was longer than that. It was longer than that, actually. It was probably like 12 years ago, actually. um, she was such an incredible woman, and spirit. And she had such an amazing voice and the way she used it. And I'm just, you know, it's sad to know that she's not here anymore with us. It is. It's made me very sad. And yeah, she did have a complicated persona. And I've been listening to her as well, trying to just think about her. Um, listening to her albums and thinking about how, she does weave a lot of biblical things in a lot of her music. Obviously her first album, The Lion and the Cobra, from Psalm 91, which is, anybody, if you are struggling with anything, you feel spiritually attacked, you're having trouble, recite Psalm 91. It is a prayer of deliverance, and it will help you. At times, there were many times in my life where I felt spiritually attacked, and just going to that. This was before I was even, back practicing being a practicing Christian, and coming back to faith with the Lord. But like that psalm itself is incredible. But yeah, the Lion and the Cobra is from that. And then she recites the Serenity Prayer and Feel So Different, at the beginning of her I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got album. And then she also, she had that song on the album also, Black Boys on Mopeds. And in it, she does recite the line from Christ about how if you were of the world, they would love you, but because you are not of the world, she spins it into her song. She doesn't say it exactly, but because you are not of the world hates you. If they hated me first, they will hate you. I've been emotional about it. I've been emotional about her. I don't know how to honor her exactly, but she does need to be honored, I think. But yeah, I didn't want to like do a stupid ass Facebook post and, treat her that way like people do when a celebrity dies. I really appreciated Morrissey's response to her death, and I was really nauseated seeing like so many people in the music industry who, my thought too when she died, like it was just like, where the hell were you like all this time? I remember years ago, like 2018, she was in this hotel room. She was posting videos where she was just bawling her eyes out. She was in such emotional distress. And then, I'm like, where were these people, And no one had a voice like hers, And she was real. That's the other thing about her. She was real. I'm so sick. This is the thing about this culture at this time too, that I just am so nauseated with. Like there's all this fake rebelliousness. You know what I mean? Like all of this contrived rebelliousness that is not rooted in anything real. I'm thinking of like, I'm just immediately like name one, but Miley fucking Cyrus, pardon my language, fraudulent. She just irritates me to no end. It's like you have these females that, so many of them, you know, because they're not women. I would never give them that title. But you have all of these like ridiculous females going about faking rebellion, or faking it. Not rooted in anything real. But with her, it was real. And she wasn't doing it to, you know, offend anyone. That's the thing about it. It wasn't to offend anyone. She was just speaking what was on her heart. And she did it like throughout her career. And it was authentic. And I guess I'm just so tired of like the machine. It's so fraudulent. And we have these like real artists like are chewed up and spit out, and then we have just what is fraudulent and what is contrived just pumped in our faces. And I guess I'm just, you know, I'm so I'm just, you know, disgusted by it. I find it also very fake. It's also like, of all the things to fake, rebellion, because it sells. It's cool to be rebellious, right? I mean, obviously, I don't know. I'm so very distressed by it. I have been very distressed by her passing and the fact that she's not with us, and the fact that she wasn't. But I don't know. It's hard to say, like, she wasn't given the love that she deserved. But of course, if she were of the world, she would have been given that love, but she wasn't. You know, that's the thing. With her, I always saw the spirit of God in her, you know? Even though she like had like mental, you know, she definitely had so much anguish, and she struggled so much, but she was so real, and it breaks my heart. I don't know. I've been very upset. I have. She was just to me like such a light. Oh, Sinead. I don't know. I can't call her Arabic name. Like, I just can't. You know, that's the other thing about it too. I'm like, how do I navigate that? Because her conversion to Islam really was like, I understood it on some levels, but on other levels, I'm just like, you know, because I always saw the spirit of Christ in her. I did. She had that. So it made me wonder, like, how can you forget? I don't know, or not remember. I don't know. My heart, man, my heart. I'm going through it for her. I want to do something for her. I don't know what. But I probably will do a video at some point. Just, oh, hold up. My computer is giving me guff. There we go. Yeah, Morrissey's, I really appreciated that because he did know her. I remember reading Pete Burns's autobiography. I think it's called Freak Unique. And he mentioned like how there was a time when she was one of his neighbors, and this was at the time that he and Morrissey were pretty close. And Morrissey is a prankster, so he particularly liked picking on Sinead. And he would like go knock on her door and like tell her that I think Pete was filming her or something like that without her knowledge. I just think like I don't know. To read that, it was sweet reading that, like thinking of it, like these people as kind of. I love a prankster. I do. I love a good prank, and I. You just imagine her as a young woman living in London at the time, and like at the height of her career, and just kicking off. I love that too. She kicked off, but she like meant it. It wasn't inauthentic, and she was anti-establishment. That's the other thing too. She did not care. She knew like what was true and what was false, and she wasn't going to be like she wasn't going to be she wasn't going to play the game, the way they wanted her to. She wasn't going to do that to herself. Like she honored her spirit and she honored like what she believed in, and she ultimately suffered for it. But I mean, that's the path of the Christian, though. That's the path. We must take up our cross. I don't know. So yeah, her conversion to Islam, I don't know how to put that into the context of her. I'm still like processing that as well. But yeah, Morrissey, like, and I love how he mentioned all these other women that were like failed as well in the post. And that's the thing about Morrissey too. Like he's another one that's like maligned a lot, and he's somebody who stands up for what he believes in, and speaks the truth, and like is offended at the right things. And Morrissey always has defended women. That's the other thing about it too, like, which is really another thing about. I want to do a video about Morrissey as well, just talking about like how much I appreciate him, because he's another one that's like he's suffering the consequences of being true to himself, being not true to himself, but being true. It's not just true to himself, he is true. But yeah, he is one that he defends women. There's not many men of his caliber who stand up for women and stand up for the women that he has. I mean, he's defended J.K. Rowling, he's defended Germaine Greer. And I felt like too with Sinead, it was like he was like defending her. She did not deserve the treatment she got. She should have been, loving arms should have been wrapped around her whole life. She should have been protected and cherished. And I think like for her fans, she was. Like that's how I felt about her. I felt that way about her. Just being a fan is like a really important thing. It really is. It's not, people treat it like it's some insignificant thing, but like when you really are a fan, I feel like you do love these people. You do love them, you honor them, you want what's best for them. So I hope Morrissey's album gets released. That Bonfire of Teenagers, we've been waiting for it for years, and it's still not out. Don't know what's going on there. It's very controversial for some reason that, anyone would be angry about the, Manchester attack. But anyway, yeah, Morrissey, he's another one. He's another legend. Yeah, Sinead, I've been distressed. I don't know. Because with her, it's just, I'm also Irish, Irish American. So it's my heritage, and I have a fondness for Irish artists and actors and, you know, singers. And so I think that was part of it with her as well, just who she was. I don't think anywhere else could have produced someone like her. And she was so beautiful too, you know? I remember watching, I think it was that VH1 show, Behind the Music. I remember when I was a kid, like watching that with her, and she talked about why she, you know, continued to shave her head. And obviously she had like multiple reasons for that. But one of them she gave was that in the depiction of the goddess, like one of them that she really resonated with, where the goddess was stripped of all of her femininity. Like she was bald, she was without any sort of vestige of outward femininity, and every ounce of her femininity came through. Like, but yeah, she still radiated that energy at the core of her being. And so like I really resonated with that. I thought it was a beautiful expression of, you know, how she presented herself as a woman. And just, it's just tragic, man. Everybody's got to go, but like she should have had many more years. No. Yes, she did. I mean, you got to believe in the Holy Spirit. If you haven't felt the Holy Spirit, I don't know what to say. But it's a real phenomenon. It is real. Our helper. The Holy Spirit is, you know, it's how God moves through us and brings about his kingdom. So it's real. And it's, I know she felt it many times in her life, but I felt it as well. It's real. But anyway, thank you for bringing up Sinead. That kind of kept me on here another, 15 minutes. Like, I've been distressed about her not knowing. I'm sure you are too, like all of her fans. I mean, so many people reached out to me about her too. Like, so many people were like messaging me like about her. It's just, she was really loved. And I wish she could have felt, maybe she did, but like an ounce of what love there was for her in people. As I think, you know, apart from her music, which is just beautiful, like there's no voice like hers, so fragile and yet so strong at the same time. And she's just so real, you know? I want people to be real. When it's so sad to me today that like women like that aren't more visible. And what we do have portrayed to us is like role models of rebellion are all leading you into hell, but she didn't lead people into hell, you know? She wasn't about that at all. She was the real deal. She was wanting to uplift humanity. Oh, poor thing, man. Poor fragile, like strong, delicate thing. I don't know. She's just such a little dove. Anyway, I'm going to go now, y'all. Thank you for bringing up Sinead. I've been devastated. I don't know. I think I might do a video just talking about some of her music and kind of giving recommendations of things to explore with her music for people getting into her. I don't know if y'all think that's a good idea or not, but there's definitely some songs that I have hers that I think people should hear. So I think that'll be a project that will be coming out in future days on the Terry Strange channel. So anyway, thank you all for watching and being here and participating live. For those watching on catch up, thank you as well. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you can catch the next one. And thank you all again. Bye.